Have you ever wondered what truly haunts people at the end of their lives? It's not the money they didn't make, or the trophies they didn't win. It's the quiet ache of words of love left unspoken, the gentle sorrow of dreams left untouched, the heavy weight of time wasted on things that never really mattered. Old souls whisper their regrets to us, hoping we might listen. So before your own days slip quietly away, stay with me. Let their stories become your wake-up call so that one day, when your hair turns silver and your hands grow tired, your heart will rest easy, knowing you truly lived. Dreams left on the shelf. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to stand at the edge of life, looking back and realizing that the person you became was only a shadow of the person you once dreamed to be? Many old souls lie quietly in their final days, haunted not by the mistakes they made, but by the dreams they never pursued. Dreams left on the shelf, gathering dust, slowly fading into nothing more than faint whispers in the dark corners of their memory. Imagine being 20 years old again, your heart pulsing with ambitions. Maybe you wanted to become a painter, to sail across the oceans, to open a little bookstore in a sunlit town. Those dreams were vivid, weren't they? They made your chest tighten with excitement. But somehow, life's current swept you in another direction. Bills to pay, mouths to feed, duties that chained your feet. So you told yourself, one day. But that day never came. Many elderly people carry a silent grief for the aspirations they abandoned. They might smile at you from their rocking chairs, pat your hand affectionately, yet deep within them there's a quiet mourning. They remember the canvases that were never touched, the songs they never wrote, the foreign cities they never wandered through. Why does this happen so often? Perhaps because we underestimate how quickly life passes. In our youth, we believe we have endless tomorrows. So we procrastinate on our heart's desires, convinced there will be a better season to chase them. We delay our passions in favor of the practical, telling ourselves that someday we'll have time to learn the guitar, to dance under streetlights, to write that novel. But then comes the sobering truth. Time is a slippery thing. The seasons change. The mirror becomes less kind, the body more fragile. And suddenly, the courage you thought you'd always have is nowhere to be found. Sometimes it's not just about fear or practicality. It's also about the voices of others. Parents who advised you to choose security over creativity. Friends who laughed at your unrealistic ideas. Society that conditioned you to believe that worth is measured by stability, not by the fire in your heart. So you set your dreams aside. To avoid ridicule or risk, you chose safety. And decades later, lying in a hospital bed, you replay your life like an old black and white film. You see those moments when you stood at a crossroad and you chose the familiar path instead of the one that scared you. And your chest aches with a longing so deep it feels like drowning. Can you imagine the pain of that realization? To know that the only thing truly standing between you and your unlived dreams was you? An old man once confessed to his granddaughter, with tears slipping down his wrinkled cheeks, "I wanted to build boats. That was my dream. But I worked in a bank for 45 years. It paid well. It gave us a house. But not a day goes by that I don't wonder what kind of man I would have been if only I had tried." These stories aren't rare. They're woven into the fabric of countless lives. They are cautionary tales whispered by the elderly, hoping someone younger will listen. So let me ask you, what dreams are you leaving on your shelf? What passions have you locked away because they seem too frivolous, too daring, too uncertain? Because here's the haunting truth. Dreams do not die a natural death. They are murdered by neglect, by hesitation, by the comforting lull of routine. Every day you postpone them, they grow weaker, until eventually they vanish. And then, all that's left is regret, a ghost that will haunt you when you are too old to do anything about it. But it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe that's the quiet gift old age tries to give us, the lesson learned too late. If we listen closely, we might hear their fragile voices urging us to take the leap now, while we still can, to be brave enough to chase the things that set our souls ablaze. Because in the end, it's better to fail at something you loved than to spend a lifetime wondering what could have been. So promise yourself this. Do not leave your dreams to wither on a dusty shelf. Pick them up, hold them close, let them terrify you, and pursue them anyway. Because when you reach the twilight of your days, you will not regret the dreams you chased and stumbled over. You will only regret the ones you never dared to touch. Words of love they never spoke. There is a peculiar kind of regret that often weighs heaviest on the hearts of the old. It is not about lost fortunes or missed career opportunities. No, it is far more delicate and far more devastating. It is the sorrow of words of love left unspoken. Have you ever sat across from someone you care for deeply, feeling a storm of affection brewing inside you, yet somehow finding yourself unable to give voice to it? You might have thought, they already know how I feel. I'll tell them another time. It's too awkward right now. So you swallowed those tender words, promising yourself there would be a better moment. But life is ruthlessly unpredictable. The right moment often never arrives. People drift away. Relationships fray. Or worse, the people you love most leave this world before you ever gather the courage to tell them just how profoundly they mattered. Many elderly people live with a haunting achia replay of moments when they could have said, "I love you," "I'm proud of you," or simply, "You mean the world to me," but didn't. Perhaps it was with a spouse they took for granted, believing love was obvious, not needing constant affirmation. Or with children who yearned for words of encouragement but received only silence. Or with friends who, unbeknownst to them, were fighting silent battles and could have used the balm of a heartfelt compliment. Isn't it strange? We fear vulnerability, yet vulnerability is the very soil where love grows. We worry we'll seem foolish, overly sentimental, or weak. So we hold back, telling ourselves that actions speak louder than words. But words matter. They linger in hearts and echo through time. Long after we're gone, it's often our words whispered in kitchens, scribbled in notes, shouted across driveways that people clutch when they miss us. Imagine an old woman sitting in her dimly lit living room, staring at a faded photograph of her husband taken decades ago. He's smiling, arms draped around her shoulders, both of them young and brimming with promise. She might whisper into the emptiness, "I hope you knew how deeply I loved you." But she wonders, did he? Truly? Did he hear those words enough times to carry them with certainty into his own grave? This regret doesn't only belong to romantic love. Think of parents who never told their children outright that they were proud. Or friends who parted after a silly disagreement, both too stubborn to say, "You still matter to me." Or even our own quiet failures show. Many times have we let a moment slip by without telling someone, "Thank you. You changed my life." Or, "Your smile makes my day better." Why do we rob ourselves and others of this grace? Maybe it's pride, maybe fear, or simply the assumption that there will always be another tomorrow to say what sits in our hearts. But one day, there isn't. An elderly man once confided to his nurse, tears welling in his tired eyes, "I never told my son I was proud of him. I thought he knew, but what if he didn't?" That question torments me more than anything. So let this be a gentle plea. Don't wait. Speak your love while your voice is strong. Wrap your words around the people you cherish. Say, "I love you," not because it's expected, but because life is unbearably fragile. Say, "I appreciate you," because gratitude spoken is a gift that lives long after both the giver and receiver are gone. Ask yourself right now, Who needs to hear these words from you? And why delay? It might feel awkward or vulnerable, but oh, how small that discomfort is compared to a lifetime of wondering if they ever truly knew. The old often learn too late that unspoken love is a tragedy. Their advice, if you lean in and truly listen, is simple and urgent. Don't let your heart's affection become a secret kept forever. Let it out. Let it dance on your tongue. Let it fill the silent spaces. Because at the end of life, no one ever wishes they had held back love. They only wish they had poured it out more freely, more openly, more often. And in that pouring, they might have left fewer regrets behind to keep them company in the dark. Forgiveness they never offered. Have you ever noticed how heavy a grudge can be? How it burrows into your chest, settling there like a stone, cold and unyielding. Many people carry such burdens for years, sometimes decades, only to discover, often far too late, that the refusal to forgive is a prison they built for themselves. Among the deepest regrets whispered by the elderly are the stories of forgiveness they never granted. They speak of siblings estranged over petty disputes, of old friends cut off by pride, of children they pushed away because of mistakes that, with time, seem so small. And as they near the end of their lives, they realize the terrible cost of holding on to anger. Imagine lying in a quiet hospital room, staring at the ceiling, replaying the faces of people who once meant everything to you. The laughter you shared, the secrets exchanged under starlit skies, the small kindnesses that built your bond. Then, as if from nowhere, a memory of harsh words spoken in anger surfaces, a single argument that unraveled years of love. You thought you had time. Time to cool off, to reconsider, to eventually reach out. But time slipped by, swift and merciless. Now, the chance to forgive is gone. Perhaps they've passed away, or simply drifted too far beyond your reach. And so you are left with an empty space where reconciliation might have blossomed. This is a sorrow many old souls carry, the realization that their hearts were too stubborn when they should have been tender. Why is forgiveness so hard for us? Maybe because it feels like surrender. Like saying, what you did was acceptable. But true forgiveness isn't about excusing wrongs. It's about releasing yourself from the corrosive grip of bitterness. It's about choosing peace over poison. An old woman once recounted a story to her granddaughter. Years ago, her best friend betrayed a confidence, something trivial now but devastating back then. Out of wounded pride, she severed the friendship. They never spoke again. Decades later, in the quiet hours of the night, she found herself wishing she could pick up the phone just to hear that familiar laugh. But pride had cemented itself so deeply that by the time she was ready, her friend had already passed on. I lost a lifetime of friendship over a moment's hurt, she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of regret. Isn't it heartbreaking how often we allow small wounds to grow into vast chasms? How we nurture our grievances, replaying them until they become stories we can't seem to set down. So let me ask you, who in your life do you need to forgive? Whose memory still stirs up anger or sadness in your heart? What would it feel like to finally let that go? To free both yourself and them from the shadow of old injuries? Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean you must welcome someone back into your life exactly as before. It simply means releasing your grip on the pain. It means choosing to no longer let it define your days. Because when you stand at the threshold of life's end, the things that once seemed so big, the slights, the betrayals, the arguments shrink to almost nothing. All that remains is a quiet yearning for love and connection, for the simple peace of knowing you didn't let your last days be haunted by old resentments. Many elderly people, when asked about their regrets, will tell you in soft, trembling voices, I wish I had forgiven sooner. I wish I hadn't let anger keep me from the people I loved. So don't wait until it's too late. Offer forgiveness while your heart still beats strong. Write that letter. Make that call. Whisper words of release into the universe, even if the person is no longer here to hear them. Because in the end, forgiveness is a gift you give yourself as much as it is to the other person. It lightens your soul, softens your days, and ensures that when you finally close your eyes for the last time, It won't be with the heavy chains of old grudges dragging you down. Time they didn't spend with family. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine your final days. Who do you see standing by your bedside? Is it the awards you won? The deals you closed? The promotions that once seemed so critical? Or is it the faces of your children, your partner, your siblings, those who laughed with you in sunlit kitchens and held you through tearful nights? When the elderly reflect on their deepest regrets, one confession surfaces again and again. I wish I had spent more time with my family. Not more time at the office, not more time chasing paychecks or accolades, but simply time, the irreplaceable currency of life shared with those they loved most. It's a regret so common, it almost feels like a cliché, and yet it continues to echo across generations. Why? Because we so easily take for granted that the people we love will always be there. We imagine we have endless dinners, countless birthdays, unlimited mornings to say, I love you. So we postpone family vacations. We skip bedtime stories. We cancel lunch dates. We promise ourselves we'll make it up to them next weekend, next year, when things finally slow down. But time doesn't wait. Children grow up while you're answering emails. Parents grow old while you chase deadlines. Spouses feel lonely in the same house while you stay glued to your phone. And one day, you look up from your busy life, only to realize that the moments you thought were small were actually everything. An old man once confessed that he hardly knew his own grandchildren. He had spent so many years building his business, believing he was securing a better future for his family, and in material ways, he did. But he missed the giggles over ice cream cones, the squeals at school recitals, the simple joys of being present. Now he sits alone in a large, silent house, wondering where all that time went. There is a simple truth the elderly often come to understand too late. Love is spelled T-I-M-E. It's not just about being physically present, but about offering your undivided attention, putting down the phone, turning off the television, really listening. It's sitting with your father on the porch as he rambles about stories from his youth. It's watching your daughter twirl in the living room, clapping like she's performing on Broadway. It's sharing quiet cups of tea with your spouse after the kids are asleep, whispering dreams like you did when love was still new. What keeps us from this? Often, it's the lie we tell ourselves that we're doing it for them, that the long hours, the constant hustle, are sacrifices to give them a better life. And yes, shelter and comfort matter, but children remember the tickle fights more than the brand of shoes you bought them. Spouses treasure small notes tucked under pillows more than luxury vacations paid for by overtime hours. And parents, as they age, crave your stories and laughter more than your gifts. So let me ask you, what memories are you building right now? If someone played back the highlight reel of your life tomorrow, would it be filled with moments that truly matter? Or would it show you hunched over a keyboard, eyes glazed with exhaustion, always promising to get back to what's important later? The tragedy is that later often never comes, and one day you may find yourself sitting across from a family member who feels more like a stranger than your own flesh and blood. That's a heartbreak many elderly people quietly endure, wishing they could go back, lay aside their schedules, and simply sit a little longer at the dinner table. So learn from their sorrow. Schedule your life around your family, not the other way around. Choose to linger in conversation. Say yes when your son asks you to kick a soccer ball, when your daughter wants to show you a silly dance, when your partner asks to take a slow walk under the stars. These are the jewels you'll cling to when your days grow short. Because at life's end, no one ever wishes they'd spent more hours at the office. They wish they had laughed more with their children, hugged their parents tighter, and danced barefoot in the living room with their beloved. They wish, simply, that they had loved better by being there. Risks they were too afraid to take. Picture for a moment an old man sitting by his window, gazing out at the sunset. His eyes follow the fading light, and his mind drifts backward through decades. He's not haunted by the mistakes he made, surprisingly. Those bring him little pain. What grips his heart with quiet sorrow are the chances he never dared to take. There is a profound regret that fills many aging hearts, the knowledge that fear once ruled their choices. They remember vividly the dreams they talked themselves out of, the adventures they postponed until it was too late, the words left unsaid because of trembling nerves. And in these twilight years, they finally understand that the biggest risk of all was never taking one. Isn't it strange how often we convince ourselves to play small? We worry about looking foolish, about failing, about hearing someone say, "I told you so." So we shrink from the cliff's edge, even if our souls long to soar. We settle into safe routines, choosing the known path over the one that makes our hearts race. An elderly woman once whispered to her granddaughter, "I always wanted to move to Italy for a year, just to see what it would be like to live there, to paint by the sea. But your grandfather had his job. I worried about the money. I told myself I wasn't brave enough. Now, my body's too frail to go. I close my eyes, and sometimes I can almost smell the ocean I never saw." Can you feel the weight of that? The heavy sigh of a life that could have been more if only fear hadn't been the loudest voice in the room? Fear is a clever thief. It dresses itself up as practicality, as caution, as wisdom. It tells you, wait until you're more prepared, or now isn't the right time. It whispers that failing would be unbearable, that people would laugh or pity you. So you stay on the ground when your spirit was made to fly. But here's the gentle truth, the old wish they could shout back through the corridors of time. Failure is rarely as painful as regret. You can recover from stumbling. You can rebuild after a plan falls apart. What's much harder to heal is the slow, aching question that creeps into your soul late at night. What if I had tried? Who might I have become? There's an old saying, ships are safest in the harbor, but that's not what ships are built for. Neither are we. We are built to explore, to dare, to sometimes fall flat on our faces and rise again with bruises that prove we lived boldly. Consider the opportunities you're hesitating over right now. The new job you're afraid isn't secure enough. The business idea that's been tugging at your heart for years. The relationship you're scared to dive into fully because you might get hurt. Or even the simple adventure of traveling alone to a place that both thrills and terrifies you. Ask yourself honestly, what's the worst that could happen? Could you lose some money? Yes. Could you experience heartbreak? Probably. Might you feel embarrassed? Almost certainly. But could you recover? Absolutely. And how much richer, how much more vividly colored might your life be for having dared? So many elderly people wish they had understood this sooner. That courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision that something else is more important. That even falling short is a kind of triumph proof that you stepped onto the stage of your life instead of merely watching from the wings. When you reach the end of your days, you won't take comfort in the moments you played it safe. You'll treasure the risks that made your heart pound, the leaps that might have seemed reckless but were actually the most authentic expressions of your soul. You'll smile, remembering the wild things you tried, even if they didn't all work out. So, take the risk, send the message, buy the ticket, start the project, Say, "I love you" first. Because one day, you'll be the one sitting by the window watching the sunset, and you'll want to remember not just how carefully you lived, but how bravely. Friendships they let fade away. There's a tender kind of sorrow that rests heavy on many aging hearts. The regret over friendships that once lit up their lives, now reduced to faded photographs and ghostly memories. Not because of betrayal or dramatic falling outs, but simply because they let them slip away. Imagine being in your 70s or 80s, leafing through old photo albums. You pause on a picture of yourself, beaming with friends on a sunlit afternoon, maybe at a picnic, or laughing in a cramped kitchen. You remember their voices, their quirks, the inside jokes that could send you all into breathless laughter. And then it hits you. When was the last time you spoke to them? How did something so precious simply dissolve? Many old people carry this quiet ache. They lost touch with dear friends, not out of malice, but because life grew busy. Careers demanded focus. Marriages required nurturing. Children absorbed every ounce of energy. Months slipped into years, and one day they found themselves struggling to even remember a close friend's birthday. Friendships are delicate, like gardens. They wither if not tended. A call skipped here, a get-together postponed there, and soon you're standing in a field of overgrown weeds where once there were vibrant blooms. Why do we let this happen? Perhaps because we take friendships for granted. We believe the bonds we formed in college dorms, over shared heartbreaks or late-night pizzas, are strong enough to last forever without effort. We underestimate the power of a simple message, a coffee date, a handwritten note that says, "I'm thinking of you." We allow pride or awkwardness to keep us from reaching out, telling ourselves, if they wanted to talk, they'd call me. Meanwhile, they may be telling themselves the exact same thing. Consider the gentle regret of an elderly man who once confided, "There were 4 of us. We did everything together, traveled, got drunk, sat up all night dreaming about the future. Then work got busy, kids came along, and we promised we'd plan a reunion. We never did. Now 2 of them are gone. And I can't believe how easily we let something so beautiful fade." Can you feel the ache of that? The way time sneaks in and steals something you thought was permanent, simply because neither side fought hard enough to keep it alive. The elderly often reflect that it wasn't just the big moments, weddings, funerals, milestone birthdays they missed sharing with old friends. It was the everyday ordinariness, calling to gripe about a tough day, sharing a ridiculous meme that only they would find funny, or dropping by unannounced with a bottle of wine. What about you? Are there friendships you've allowed to grow distant, hoping they'll magically sustain themselves? Who do you think of now and smile? Someone who knew you before the world layered all its expectations on your shoulders. Someone who saw you raw and unguarded and loved you anyway. Reach out to them, send that message, plan that dinner. Even if it's been years, don't let the awkwardness of time past keep you silent. You'd be surprised how quickly laughter returns, how memories spill out like old songs once you're together again. Because one of the bitterest truths the old will tell you is that by the time you're finally ready to rekindle these friendships, it might be too late. People move on. People grow ill, people die, and there's no way to reclaim those lost years. So nurture your friendships. Make time, even when life is chaotic. Be the one who sends the first text, who says, "Let's catch up soon," and means next week, not next year. Because in the end, the tapestry of your life is most richly woven with threads of love and shared laughter. And when you're old and flipping through those same photo albums, let them be a comfort, not a source of regret. Let them remind you of bonds you cherished and chose to water again and again until they lasted as long as you did. The apologies they never made. If you've ever lain awake at night replaying a moment when you hurt someone through sharp words, cold silence, or careless choices, you've felt the sting of remorse. Now, imagine that feeling magnified by decades, knowing there's no chance left to make it right. This is one of the profound regrets many elderly people carry, the apologies they never made. Why do we hold back from saying, "I'm sorry"? Maybe because pride whispers that admitting fault makes us weak. Or perhaps we fear reopening old wounds, stirring up pain that might be better left buried. Sometimes we convince ourselves it's too late, or we hope time alone will mend what we broke. But time doesn't always heal. More often, it hardens the edges of regret, turns it into a quiet, lifelong ache. Many old souls confess that the sorrow of never offering a heartfelt apology is far heavier than the discomfort of having done it. Think of an aging father who once lost his temper and shouted cruel words at his teenage son. They moved on, at least on the surface, but the closeness they once shared never quite returned. Now the father sits by the window in his twilight years, watching children play outside, wondering if his son ever truly felt how sorry he was for letting anger eclipse love that day. That single moment cast a long shadow across decades. Or imagine a woman who drifted from her sister after a bitter argument. Both were too stubborn to bridge the gap. They built separate lives, each waiting for the other to reach out first. Then one day, a phone call came with the news of her sister's passing. There was no letter, no visit, no whispered, "I'm sorry." Only an emptiness where reconciliation might have been. What stops us? Perhaps it's the belief that the other person should apologize first, or that by saying sorry we concede we were entirely wrong. But real apologies are not about assigning total blame. They're about acknowledging the hurt we caused, whether intentional or not, and choosing humility over ego. There's also a deeper truth. Apologies are not only gifts to the ones we've wronged, but also to ourselves. To apologize sincerely is to unburden our hearts. It's to stand in our humanity, flawed and vulnerable, and make room for peace. Ask yourself, who might still be carrying pain because of something you did or said? Who plays back old conversations in their minds, wishing you'd offered different words? What relationship might still be salvaged, or at least softened if you found the courage to say, "I was wrong. I'm sorry for how I hurt you"? Even if years have passed, even if you fear your apology will not be accepted, it is still worth offering. Many elderly people say their biggest regret isn't that they tried to mend old wounds and failed, it's that they never tried at all. They let stubbornness, fear, or embarrassment win, only to discover that pride is a hollow companion in old age. Sometimes, the apology you need to make isn't even to another person, but to yourself, for all the times you betrayed your own needs, silenced your own voice, ignored your own heart. Many old people look back wishing they had been kinder, more forgiving to the person they saw in the mirror. So don't wait until your voice trembles with age or until the grave stands between you and the one you wronged. Speak your regrets now, while time still offers the chance for redemption. Reach out with humility and tenderness. Even if the other person cannot fully forgive, you will have honored the truth in your heart, and that alone can bring profound relief. Because when your days draw short and you take stock of your life, you won't cherish the victories you clung to by refusing to apologize. You'll only wish you had been gentler, braver, and more willing to heal the fractures between you and those you once loved. choosing work over living. There's a haunting confession often whispered by those in the twilight of life, words heavy with years of realization. I spent too much of my life working, and not enough truly living. In our modern world, ambition is almost a virtue, and hard work a badge of honor. We chase careers with relentless determination, striving for promotions, raises, recognition. We pour countless hours into building our professional lives, believing that one day, the payoff will finally let us relax and enjoy the fruits of our labor. But for many, that day never quite arrives. And by the time it might, health has waned, relationships have withered, and the simple joys of living have become out of reach. It's only when age stills the hands and slows the feet that many begin to see the terrible bargain they made. They traded irreplaceable moments for meetings and memos, chose overtime over evening walks, allowed business trips to steal anniversaries and birthdays. They filled their calendars, but emptied their souls. Imagine an elderly man, once a powerful executive, sitting alone in his spacious living room, surrounded by the spoils of his Labora luxury car in the driveway, fine art on the walls, an expansive garden tended by hired hands. Yet none of these can laugh with him over old memories or hold his hand as he drifts to sleep. The house, though grand, echoes with silence. He sacrificed laughter-filled dinners, impromptu weekend getaways, slow afternoons playing board games on the porchal for deadlines and quarterly targets that no longer matter. There's nothing inherently wrong with hard work. Providing for one's family, building something meaningful, striving to excel, these are noble pursuits. The danger lies in letting work become the only pursuit, allowing it to overshadow the very life it's meant to support. So many elderly people wish they had understood this balance sooner. They wish they'd taken more vacations, even if it meant earning a little less. That they'd closed the laptop when their child tugged at their sleeve, eager to show them a drawing. That they'd left the office early to watch a sunset hand in hand with their spouse. Work will always be there. The emails will keep coming. New goals will replace the old. But childhoods do not last. Loved ones will not wait forever. Even your own passions, the hobbies and small delights that give texture to your days can quietly disappear if ignored long enough. Ask yourself honestly, if tomorrow you were told your time was nearly up, what moments would you wish you had more of? The glow of a spreadsheet at midnighter, the glow on your partner's face by candlelight, the satisfaction of an approved proposaler, the satisfaction of hearing your child's delighted giggle as you chase them through the yard. Many people approaching the end of life regret not that they worked, but that they worked so unceasingly, that they let the demands of bosses and clients eclipse birthday cakes and bedtime stories, that they didn't take more sick days simply to stay home and watch the rain fall with someone they loved. And then there is the personal side of living. How many never learned to play an instrument, never sat by a river sketching birds, never read poetry aloud under the stars, all because they couldn't justify time spent on anything that didn't produce profit. So here is a gentle reminder from the voices of those who've come before you. Don't let your life become a resume. Don't let your days blur into one long conference call. Work, yes, but live alongside it. Laugh deeply, travel lightly, savor slowly. Because in the end, the corner office means nothing if you have no one to dance with in the kitchen. The hefty savings account offers little comfort if your memories are all of work. When your hair grows silver and your hands tremble, you'll look back not at your salary slips, but at the moments when your heart was fully awake. Choose wisely. Choose living. Hiding their true selves. As the years slip by, many people begin to reckon with a piercing truth. They spent much of their precious time on earth wearing masks, concealing parts of who they truly were. And by the time they grow old, they can't help but mourn all the days they lived as someone else. Can you imagine the weight of reaching your final chapter, only to realize you never fully allowed yourself to be you? So many elderly souls confess this regret in hushed tones. They hid their quirks, buried their passions, stifled their beliefs all to fit in, to avoid judgment, to keep peace. They shaped themselves to meet expectations that, in hindsight, seem painfully shallow. Perhaps it began in small ways. A young man who loved painting was told it wasn't manly enough, so he set down his brushes forever. A woman who adored science was teased for being too smart and chose not to pursue it, afraid she'd intimidate others. Or the countless individuals who silenced their true voices, who hid who they loved, what they believed, what they dreamed of, just to stay safely inside the lines others drew for them. Imagine the ache of realizing you spent decades downplaying your laughter because it was too loud, your opinions because they were too controversial, your style because it was too bold. The older people often say they wish they had been braver not only in what they did, but in who they were. They long to go back and dance in ways that might have looked silly, wear clothes that felt like sunshine to their souls, or speak truths that might have made the room uncomfortable, but would have set them gloriously free. Why do we hide? Perhaps it's the fear of rejection, the terror of standing alone, the subtle lessons society teaches us from childhood. Be agreeable, don't make waves, blend in. So we fold up pieces of ourselves, tucking them away until one day we can hardly remember what they looked like. But there comes a day, often when age has softened the ego and mortality draws near, when many sit quietly and mourn for their hidden selves. They whisper, "I wish I hadn't cared so much about what others thought." Because, ironically, the people whose approval they once craved so desperately are often long gone or never truly paying close attention at all. A dear old woman once confessed with a bittersweet smile, "I spent my life trying to be what everyone else needed: a dutiful wife, a respectable neighbor, a polite hostess. Now I wonder, who was I underneath all that? I think she was someone wonderful, someone I barely let see the light." Can you feel the tragedy of that? To only meet your real self in glimpses, too fleeting, too fragile. So let this be a gentle urging. Embrace who you are, fully and without apology. If you love poetry, read it aloud even if no one listens. If your heart dances to a strange rhythm, let it dance. If your truth makes others uncomfortable, trust that the right people will celebrate it. Because authenticity may cost you some company, but it will reward you with a profound, unshakable peace. Ask yourself right now, what part of you have you been hiding? What passions, truths, or dreams have you buried for fear of ridicule or rejection? And what would it feel like to finally live without those chains? The elderly often say they envy the young not for their smooth skin or quick steps, but for the time they still have to be unapologetically themselves. They wish they could reach back through time, hold their younger selves by the shoulders, and whisper, "Be who you are. The world will adjust." So don't wait until the twilight of life to discover that the most liberating joy comes from simply being your true self. Wear your colors bright, laugh your real laugh, love who you love, stand in your truth. Because when the final days arrive, you'll want to look back not at a life spent performing, but at one lived in the radiant honesty of your own unique light. Not appreciating the little moments. In the end, life is rarely about grand triumphs or sweeping adventures. It is, more often, a quiet tapestry woven from countless small moments, ordinary, fleeting, and breathtakingly precious. Yet many people only come to understand this truth when their days are nearly done, and by then, they are left with a tender, bittersweet regret that they did not savor life's simplest offerings more deeply. Think of how easily we overlook the little things: the scent of rain on warm pavement, the sleepy weight of a child curled against your chest, morning light filtering through kitchen curtains, turning dust into glitter, the gentle cadence of a loved one's voice telling you, "I'm so glad you're here." In youth and midlife, we often chase milestones. We mark our calendars by promotions, graduations, weddings, big vacations, always the next big thing. And while these moments are certainly worthy of celebration, they are only fragments. The true substance of life lies in the spaces between: the way your dog's tail thumps against the floor when you walk in the door, the comfort of holding a familiar hand, the laughter that bubbles up over something small and silly, echoing long after the moment has passed. Many elderly people reflect with sorrow on how they rushed through these everyday wonders, distracted by worries or ambitions. They recall sitting at dinner with their families while their minds churned over work problems, or standing under a glorious evening sky, phone in hand, scrolling past the sunset. They remember how quickly their children grew, 1 minute tugging on their pants to be picked up, the next packing for college, and they ache, wishing they had lingered longer in each ordinary, magical stage. Imagine an old man sitting on a porch, eyes closed, rocking gently. He smiles faintly, not at the memory of awards he won or deals he closed, but at the recollection of his wife's sleepy voice saying, "Come back to bed," at the way his daughter's tiny fingers once wrapped tightly around just one of his, at the warm steam of coffee shared in companionable silence. How he wishes he could go back and pause there, breathe it in a little longer. Why do we fail to appreciate these moments while we're living them? Maybe because we think there will be endless more. Maybe because the mind is always racing, ahead, planning, worrying, strategizing. Or perhaps because we've been taught that real joy lies somewhere off in the future, in something bigger. But the elderly often whisper the quiet truth. It was never the grand things. It was the lazy Sunday mornings, the shared glances across crowded rooms, the sound of familiar laughter from the next room. These were the moments that made life rich, and these are the moments they would give anything to hold on to just one more time. So what about you? When was the last time you truly tasted your meal instead of rushing through it, or lay back to watch clouds drift across the sky without feeling guilty for doing nothing? When did you last look deeply into a loved one's eyes and simply marvel that this soul exists beside yours? Because one day, you too will find yourself looking back, and it will not be your resume you long to flip through, nor your bank statements, nor the accolades neatly framed on your wall. It will be the soft, unremarkable evenings, the simple joys, the laughter over burnt toast, the smell of your grandmother's perfume, the echo of your child's giggles down a hallway. Let this awareness seep into your days now. Pause, feel the sun on your face, hold someone just a little longer. Say, "Thank you," for even the most ordinary blessings. Slow down enough to let the small wonders of life imprint themselves on your heart. Because if there is one collective wisdom the elderly offer us, it is this: do not wait until your days grow short to treasure what was always right before you. The little moments are, in the end, the biggest moments of all. A gentle reminder for us all. So here we are, at the end of this quiet journey through the hidden regrets, that old souls often carry with them to their graves. It's a heavy tapestry, isn't it? Woven from dreams unchased, love unspoken, forgiveness withheld, time misplaced, risks untaken, friendships neglected, apologies unsaid, lives consumed by work, true selves masked, and small moments missed. And yet there is something profoundly hopeful in hearing these regrets, because they are not just laments, they are also tender lessons. Warnings whispered across the years from those who have already traveled this winding road. They reach back to us, hoping we might walk it with a little more awareness, a little more courage, and a lot more love. Can you hear their voices? Can you feel the gentle tug at your heart urging you to pause, to reflect, to perhaps make different choices before it's too late? What would your own life look like if you learned from their sorrows now, while there is still time to choose differently? If you pulled your dreams down from the shelf, brushed off the dust, and began to breathe life into them, if you said the tender words of love that tremble on your tongue before regret could ever take root, if you offered forgiveness not because it excuses what was done, but because it frees your soul to heal, what would change if you closed the laptop a little earlier tonight to sit on the floor with your children, to call your aging parents just to hear the smile in their voices? If you gathered up your courage and took the leap you've been quietly craving, letting the thrill of risk remind you that you're still vibrantly alive? Imagine how rich your days might become if you nurtured old friendships, if you made the hard apologies, if you stopped hiding your quirks and passions and simply let yourself be gloriously, unapologetically you. And above all, what might your life feel like if you began to savor the smallest moments? The way your partner's hand fits yours, the taste of morning coffee, the rustle of leaves outside your window. If you truly understood that these little things are not insignificant, they are in fact the very marrow of your days. The elderly cannot go back and change their choices, but you, right now, still can. You still have countless mornings ahead of you, countless chances to pick differently, to love more openly, to live more boldly. So take these gentle regrets not as mere stories of sorrow, but as lanterns to light your own path. Let them guide you toward a life that, when you are one day old and gray, will fill you not with sighs of if only, but with a soft, contented smile. Because in the end, a life well lived is not one without mistakes, but one where love was spoken freely, risks were taken wholeheartedly, forgiveness was offered generously, and every small, ordinary joy was treasured deeply. May you live such a life, starting right now.